would be famous if I just got drunk, went out to a club, let people shoot some video with their fancy camera phones.
If you're looking for a drink in South Philadelphia, you might encounter Dee Reynolds. Now, on the face of it, you might think she's normal, personable, perhaps even attractive. But within moments of interacting, you may start to sense something is off, not realizing that you're engaging with someone so starved of validation that she'll do anything to keep you interested. And when you inevitably choose to walk away, like everyone does, the more her need for attention grows. The problem is, Dee has always put too much stock in the view of others, and the more she got rejected, the more she sought refuge in the protective fantasy of her imagination, dreaming that she's destined to be a star. As once she becomes famous, all of these rejections can be reframed as mere trials and tribulations of a misunderstood genius. But with every year that passes with no symptoms of success, the more desperate she becomes. And this desperation drives her to lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, and put others down. Whatever it takes to re-establish that she is in control of her own destiny and worthy of adoration. So let's take a deeper look at the tragic psychology of Dee Reynolds over 17 seasons of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia to see if we can understand why she becomes just as sadistic and manipulative as the rest of the gang. We'll start with the psychology of the character. Dee was born as a twin, and was therefore thrust into competition for attention from the moment she was born. A competition she would instantly lose, as Dennis found that the best way to elevate himself was putting his sister down. And given Frank was mostly away on business, their self-worth would be determined by Barbara, a narcissistic empty shell of a mother who never gave her children the love they desperately needed. So with Dennis and her mother constantly putting her down, Dee was outnumbered at home, and therefore all of her social aspirations were targeted at school, where unfortunately she had to wear a back brace and was once again nowhere near as popular as Dennis. So she was second best at home and she was second best at school. The only arena she believed she stood out was acting, as she got to play Frankenstein's monster in the school play and was inspired by her teacher Larry Myers, not realizing that his enthusiasm for her performance was only due to his drinking problem. But this tiny sliver of validation was enough to make acting her life's mission, as once she was a star, her family and fellow students would have to respect her, despite of course no longer needing them. Because after years of being bullied for her scoliosis, or her mother calling her fat, or brother tearing her down, what Dee really wants is just a platform to punch down from. But of course, Dee's dreams wouldn't come to fruition, as she lacks both the talent and work ethic to compete against other actors. So she ended up working in her brother's bar with her brother's friends, where he quickly re-established the dynamic that she was the one to be put down in order to elevate himself. So as the only girl, she was once again outnumbered, and therefore the only way she could seek validation was through promiscuity. As long as other men wanted her, even just for one night, then she could feel valued, different, special. But it's in the underage drinking episode that we see the cause and effect of how Dee being put down lowers her self-worth to the point she starts seeking validation in all the wrong places. It begins when her mother pressures her into dating more, telling her her time is running out due to her age, so naturally she needs a pick-me-up. And when the high school student calls and says she's the most beautiful woman he's ever met, she's flattered and agrees to meet. This way, she doesn't need to think about how old she actually is, she can just start reliving her youth, except this time she gets to hang out with the cool kids for once. Until she ends up getting too drunk on prom night and gets rejected for someone better once again.
We can find a way to emasculate the men whose attention we're seeking.
There's clearly a big empty hole in Dee's heart that needs to be filled, as over the course of the series, we see her throw herself at all sorts of men. Married, single, old, young, it really doesn't matter, as long as they make her feel special in some way. Because after her mother calling her fat and old for decades, and feeling insecure about the clownish size of her feet, she really just wants to prove that she is desirable, which is why she tries to weaponize sex, even allowing herself to be used as bait for a serial killer to prove she does meet the victim description of attractive young blonde, or offering to sleep with men just to get jobs, gain access to secret recipes, or further her career in entertainment. But on the rare occasion that she does actually like someone, deep down Dee is still that same insecure teenager, and she gets so nervous for the potential incoming rejection that she overdrinks, which leads her to making a bigger fool out of herself. It's a vicious cycle that many drinkers can relate to. She thinks so little of herself that she needs to get drunk to steady her nerves, but then this sloppy behaviour drives the very people she hoped to attract away, which only further increases her need to drink the next time because she has more evidence she's likely going to be rejected again. It's all pretty tragic, as this desperate need for validation could have been resolved if she just had one person in her life tell her she was good enough.
Tell me it was good. Tell me I'm good. Tell me I'm good. Tell me that was good. Tell me I'm good.
This fragile sense of self leads Dee to have to lie in order to hold onto her fantasies, which is why when she pays to go to therapy, where she could be unpacking her trauma and rebuilding herself with a clearer perspective of her wants and needs, she instead just uses it as a bubble to reinforce her delusions, claiming she was actually chosen to play the lead in The Notebook over Rachel McAdams, but passed on it due to scheduling conflicts, and then blows resources she could be investing in her future on a psychic that tells her he sees a windfall of cash coming her way. This all protects Dee from having to face reality or make the necessary changes to become the person she allegedly wants to be. Instead, she wastes her time trying to earn the approval of the group she surrounds herself with, whether it's taking steroids so she can cheat at boxing, getting them to participate in an escape room she's secretly already completed so she can come across as smart, or participating in their schemes, no matter how sadistic, just so she can make herself useful. The problem is that Dee is prone to taking shortcuts and has a proclivity for instant gratification. If she needs money, she'll lie to get on welfare, double drop at work, pretend she has a child to claim benefits from the government, or even deceive the couple who want to use her as a surrogate to make herself sound like a better candidate than she actually is. Each of these fraudulent maneuvers are essentially theft, but that shouldn't be a surprise given that Dee is not above directly stealing either. Whether it's trying to run out of a store to steal shoes she can't afford, or stealing a lover's watch so he's forced to see her again. But all of these admittedly pathetic deceptions are still linked into Dee's deep-rooted quest for validation, as after feeling so out of control of how she's perceived, treated, or rewarded, these tricks put her back in the driving seat. As if she has more money, nicer clothes, gets picked as a surrogate, or forces the man she slept with to see her again, then it creates the illusion that she's more wanted, needed, and overall doing better in life than she actually is. But deceiving people for personal gain isn't the only way Dee feels any sense of control. She also learned from her brother how to put others down in order to elevate herself. Just look at how she treats the waitress. Now, every relationship has a dynamic, a pattern and role we tend to fall back into. But the waitress is very much just a victim of the gang, someone they can use and take their frustrations out on like she's not even human, which may be why they don't even bother learning her real name. But the waitress actually serves an important purpose for Dee. No matter how miserably her life is going, at least she can always tell herself there's someone she's better than. And if that power dynamic ever shifts, there's no weakness she won't exploit to pull the waitress back down beneath her. For instance, she knows the waitress has a terrible drinking problem, but that doesn't stop her putting a drink in her hand. When the waitress is her superior at the bar they work at and warns her to stop stealing, she leverages her relationship with Dennis to keep her quiet, knowing that she'll do anything to have another chance with her brother. When she needs someone to recreate Sex in the City with her, she reluctantly enlists the waitress as her sidekick by holding Charlie's notebook that details her every move over her head, saying she'll only give it to her if she does what she asks. So now the waitress has to choose between protecting her privacy and security or spending time with someone she hates.
You basically just get a bunch of dirt on people and you hold it over their heads.
Then when the waitress is engaged to Brad, a now fresh-faced guy Dee dumped in high school because he had acne, she can't bear the idea that the waitress might get married before her, so has to sabotage the relationship and steal Brad back for herself. Because in Dee's mind, she was better than Brad back then, and she's still better than the waitress now. So if she were to lose him to her, then she's officially hit rock bottom, and her whole house of cards falls down. So she sets up a fake bachelorette party so that her ex can meet the waitress's supposed friends for the first time, and then uses everyone at the party as a prop to put her down, telling Mac's mom to tell Brad that she used to look just like the waitress when she was young, revealing that the bride-to-be slept with Frank, and reminding Brad that his fiancé has a really embarrassing problem with alcohol, all so she can lower her value just enough that she appears marginally better. And then we come to how Dee manipulates the gang. Given Dee is the least respected member of the group, who's constantly bullied and abused for their entertainment, whenever she's given the opportunity to reclaim just a little shred of power, she grabs it with both hands. Just think of the Time's Up episode when Mac picks her up by the crotch. At first, she's mightily impressed with his strength and seems totally fine with what just happened. But once she's told his actions constitute assault and she could press charges, just look at how quickly she's corrupted with the possibility of turning the tables.
She could press charges.
Could I?
No. No, Dee, no.
He just said I could, so...
Oh.
When it's D-Day, and the gang now has to do whatever Dee wants, without hesitation or objection, she takes full advantage of her power to torture her supposed friends, and then tricks them into breaking the rules by setting the clocks forward an hour so they have to go through another full day of doing whatever she demands. When she discovers that Dennis is controlling Mac and his group of idiots like an anonymous cult leader, she jumps at the opportunity to get in on the action for personal gain. She's actually quite crafty at getting her own back on anyone who's wronged her. Just like when the gang aren't even interested in the massive news that she's pregnant, she coerces them into caring by telling them one of them is actually the father. So now they have to spend a full day figuring out who it might be, even though it isn't any of them. So while Dee may not be the best manipulator in the group, she still has her moments. But tragically, almost every scheme she pulls is really just a cry for help, a desperate attempt to make people pay more attention to her or treat her better, which doesn't last long. But revenge is where Dee's dark side really reveals itself. Although she's in constant pursuit of any form of validation she can get, it cuts twice as deep whenever a source of validation turns into a source of rejection. This makes her feel tricked, victimized, and therefore justified in rebalancing the books. And let's be honest, the only two sources of validation she's ever had are acting and men. So let's look at examples of each. When she's told in an audition that the thousands of dollars she spent on acting classes were only ever beneficial to her acting teacher, she decides to get her money back by setting up an acting class of her own, which isn't unusual. As they say, those that can't do teach. But unlike many teachers, Dee doesn't look at the job as a way to really share her knowledge. She just sees it as a quick way to recoup her losses. Although, she quickly discovers that being a source of validation for others that desperately need it is a tremendous source of power. As given these students aren't being emotionally supported anywhere else, her words carry twice the weight. She essentially holds their entire self-worth in her hands. This leads to her breakthrough realization that the power to emotionally control others was all she ever really wanted from acting to begin with.
Shh, I'm not done. Oh, that's real power. Way more power than just acting, and I think that's what it was probably all about for me, you know?
And it's hardly a surprise to hear this, as for someone who's been so emotionally neglected and discouraged her whole life, having any power, no matter how trivial, is like an IV drip straight to her ego. As finally she's above a group of people who aren't just paying her, but hanging on her every word. Similarly, when Dee gets rejected by a man she slept with, in many ways this is the ultimate criticism, as she's given them everything she has to offer and it's still not enough. So as always, instead of working on herself, she focuses on tearing them down. We see this in the group dates episode, where the guy she likes and thinks she's in a relationship with is actually still dating, and considers her nothing but a casual side piece. So she begins to take her frustrations out on other men with her new D system. Do them, establish low rating, and thus empower herself, expecting that these 1-star reviews will hurt these men as much as the guy she wanted hurt her. But unfortunately, she discovers that her supposed victims don't actually care about how they're perceived as long as they keep getting what they want. For them, the validation only comes from sleeping with her, not her enjoyment of it, which only serves to lower her self-esteem more, as her opinion is, once again, irrelevant. So in the episode PTSD, she takes even more drastic action when the stripper she likes reveals that hooking up with her was a giant wake-up call for him to get his shit together, because Dee was essentially his rock bottom. So in what appears to be a desperate quest to raise her value and make him realize what rock bottom actually looks like, she brings him to a veteran support group, using the sad stories of the people involved to give him perspective. She even gets him paid work teaching Frank how to play video games and a lucrative stripping gig at their bar. This way she can establish herself as someone who's there for him through thick and thin. She can be his rock, not his rock bottom. But it turns out all of this was just a manipulative scheme to trick him into giving his own daughter he was desperate to be reunited with an erotic dance, spoiling their relationship forever. As given she felt tricked into believing that their relationship could actually go somewhere, only to have it stripped away with his cruel comment, now she's giving him a taste of his own medicine. This is his real rock bottom moment, not her, and now he'll never be able to forget that things can always get worse. So while there are many tragic characters in It's Always Sunny, there is something uniquely needy and pathetic about Dee Reynolds, a woman who views herself in one light.
I don't take advantage of people. I am not white trash. I am a kind and a generous and a good-natured lady.
And then can't handle when anyone contradicts this false perception. As while she may like to believe she's morally superior to the men she surrounds herself with, after years of being psychologically abused, she's absorbed all the tricks of the trade, and is willing to unleash them on anyone she has even just the slightest bit of leverage over. That is, unless you give her the validation she so desperately needs. Well, if you've made it this far, firstly, thank you for watching, but if you could now give the video a like, possibly even leave a comment and click on that subscribe button, it will encourage that mysterious algorithm to do its thing.